Welcome to People Love Process. Since this movie will land on July 4th, which is Independence Day here in America, I decided to theme the content and create a patriotic design. So with that said, let's jump right into it. Now, I did a course for LinkedIn Learning a few years back, and one of the clients that I documented within that course was an apparel t-shirt company, and they wanted an apparel line on Americana. So these were some of the designs I created for that. I really like the center one, proud to be American. I don't think anybody's ever done that before, but me and my daughter Savannah did these designs. That specific design was kind of her design, my idea. She executed it. All the other ones are some of the patriotic designs we did. Some of it's based off of American history. Some of it is just taking the national bird for America, which is the bald-headed eagle, and utilizing that within our motifs. So I decided I wanted to create one for 4th of July. This is my original thumbnail sketch, not a big sketch, pretty small. Not even this big, actually. I just had to blow it up a little bit so you could see something when I showed it here in the movie. But I wanted to make it a typography-based design. So this was my initial thumbnail. Then, of course, I did more precise hand lettering, drew out some guides, and kind of figured out how I wanted the letter forms to be. And I wanted an American Eagle head, and then match the style of the letter forms for USA and create wings after that. So this is what I drew out. So it's at this point, I'll select it like I do all my art. I'll go to transparency palette and punch in a numeral between. It just depends. Sometimes it's 15%, sometimes it's 20, lock the layer. And on top of it, the first thing I want to do is establish the tolerances. Since it's a typeface, I want to know exactly what the thickness is going to be. I've drawn it out that way, but I need to nail it down precisely. So the elements that go straight down, these are a little thicker if you go up here. And by the way, if you don't have your control panel turned on, I highly recommend it. It gives you access to information. If I click on transform, you can see this is a little over. We're at fractional numbers here because I blew this up from my original design. I almost always, as I've said before, create things in whole numbers. It just makes the math easier. But in this case, this is a little over 43 points wide on this shape. If I select this shape, this is going to be thinner. So if you go to the height here, you can see it's 32. So the down parts of the vertical elements in the typography are thicker. The horizontal elements, the crossbars, etc., those would be this thickness. So I established that tolerance. I established the tolerance for the gaps. So all of these are the same, whether it's in between the letter forms here and here, or the detailing on what will end up being a wing motif. So I just wanted to establish that, because if you don't have those tolerances established, it's much like iconography. It's not going to work together as a family or work together as a unified whole. There'll be some fragmentation in your graphics. And if you ever wondered what makes bad design is the more elements that are fragmented and don't unify together and work together, the more kind of disjointed a design will be, and that's what leads to bad design. So we want to avoid that by establishing those tolerances. For the base black and white, I'm just going to do simple shapes. So that's all I did here. And what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to select all these shapes that we have here. I'm going to select them all. So you can see all it is rectangles. And I move some of the anchors to get the angle here. And that angle is matching the angle they'll ultimately have on the letter form A. But if I select all these shapes for S, and we go to Pathfinder, and I click on Unite, when you build, or shape build that is, with the Pathfinder, or with the pen tool for that matter, and you combine shapes that you've created, objects, vector objects you've created using Pathfinder, you might run into this. It creates these anchor points. That doesn't have to be. So I'm going to go Command Z, undo that. And I want to show you what you should always have on by default. Go to the Pathfinder, go to the option menu, go to Pathfinder options, click on that, open up, and you see they have this feature called remove redundant points. It would imply that it removes redundant points, but it really doesn't. But you still want to turn it on because you saw what it did. It added those points. And now with it on, we'll click OK. I'll go back and redo that, and you'll see it doesn't add the points. So it at least removes it in this context. That said, you can still get redundant points in Illustrator, even though it says it removes them. It doesn't. I wish they would completely fix that, but it is good to have on in general. So with all of these, I go in and unite them, and you can see it doesn't create those redundant points, which is important. We're going to go ahead and take this one. I've done 1/2 because this is symmetric, so I'm just going to clone it, Command C, Command F. And we're going to go to the reflect tool, find a central anchor point. I have smart guides turned on, by the way, Command U, and we'll reflect that over. I'll select these two, and I'll go ahead and unite it like that. And then on this last shape, let's go ahead and zoom in on this shape because we've created or established our base shape here, and then I'm going to use secondary shapes just to edit it. So I'll take this rectangle that I've rotated to the same degree I have on the edge of the front part of the wing to the back part of the wing. And then that way I'll go ahead and select the shape of the wing, the edit shape, minus front will trim the back. Then we have all these interior elements. They're the same gap ratio or proportion as in between the letter forms. And I'll unite those. And then on this, you can fix this by dragging this past, hitting unite again, and then just isolating the two elements you don't need. And this is almost like a letter F, but again, this is sitting on top. If I go ahead and fill it, you can see it's sitting on top. I'll select the back shape, and I'll go minus front. And now we've created, it's almost like a letter E, but this is going to end up being the wing like that. So that'll work. And so this is how I would simply build these shapes that are going to make up the letter forms, make up the wings. And of course, I have the eagle head here. So this is how I build. And on the eagle head part, I'll just select that, select the A, and we'll minus front because that'll be the negative part of the letter form A, like that. And we have all of our components here. Now, what I want to do is I want to round this. So what we're going to do is turn on this layer because we just colored it black. And now we'll go ahead and round it on the elements such as this. And if you want to use the corner widget, you can. I'll be honest with you, the type of rounding that I'm doing here, I'd almost always use the dynamic corners tool by Astute Graphics. I just find it works a lot better because when you do this with the corner widget, you have to, if you want the continuity of the rounds on the U and the S and the A and even our wing motif to be the same, what you have to do is you have to know that before you round anything, and you have to select those corners that are going to have those same attributes, and you have to do them all at the same time. That's the part I don't like about this tool. If we go down here, we'd want this to be the same. If we go down here, we'd want this to be the same. It assumes you know all that already, and at this point, I don't. But I just wanted to explain that because that's how you can get all the continuity. It'll give you the readouts here. So you just go until you think it's about close. Maybe it's like right around there. That'd be good. And you let go. Then you get all those rounds. Now, the way I prefer to do it, and I'll do some of the rounding this way, is I'll just grab the Dynamic Corners tool by Astute Graphics, part of Vector Scribe plugin that Astute Graphics sells. And I'm going to go in because I don't want these inner corners to be square. I want those to be rounded too. And this is where I'll go in, but I don't have to select an anchor. I just go to the anchor and I can go ahead. Let's go ahead and zoom in. It'll be easier to see what we're doing. Like this, and I'll grab, I had the wrong tool. That's right. I forgot they added the dimension tool. I keep meaning to take this out because it repositions where my muscle memory is working against me here. So we're going to go to the dynamic corners tool. This is the palette for it. And I can go to any corner and it automatically detects, yes, you can round this corner. And it says, here's a round. Well, I don't want that big. I'm just going to pull it out. And we're going to only do it maybe a little over 3, something like that. And then it remembers that round. And I can go to the next one, just go click and click that round. And this is the way that I do this kind of rounding. I just apply the first one, the first permeation to the other corners I want to have that same amount of rounding. I think, let's see, we'll do it here. So I'll go here. Then I'm going to apply that same rounding to these corners like that. And then the nice thing is you can also, let's say on this eagle, I can go in here and figure out a rounding that works. I think that looks okay. And then I can apply it to this one. And then if I decide, you know what, that might work for the base here, I can click on that and it'll apply it to that one. So that's why I tend to use these plugins over the native tools in Illustrator because it gives me more flexibility. I might go in here, and if I re-click on anything, it reestablishes that tolerance. Then I can apply it to other areas, like on this letter form S, maybe at the top of the U here as it's coming out from the inside. And then I'll go over here and apply a small round there as well. And then I like to do subtle rounding as well. And subtle rounding is just that, very subtle. I just noticed we forgot the curve here. So I'll go ahead and click on that and apply that here. And subtle rounding is being able to go to a corner and just barely putting a round on it. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's not even 2 points, something like that. And then I can put that on all the sharp vertices, all the sharp corners. I go down here and put it here. I don't want any of these to be completely pointed. I want them to round off nicely. Even when they come to a point like on the S, I'll round those off. And this is the type of rounding I do just to button up a design like that. And these are all dynamic, meaning if I want to change it, I can go back and do so and bring back a point if I wanted. I'd even go in on this eagle and add just a subtle round on the tip of his beak because I think that looks better. So I just wanted to point that out. All the rounding in place. This is where we can colorize it. Obviously, this is based off of American history. So red, white, and blue is our national colors. So I'll go ahead and select this typography. This will be blue. The wing here will be red. And of course, in this context, the background is white. We have secondary type I've added to it, Liberty for All, since 1776, which is when the Declaration of Independence was established, and we'll drop a star since the American flag has stars in it. And I like this. Now, I usually set projects aside as I'm working on this, and I worked over on this for about 3 or 4 days. Whenever I had time in between doing this and that, I'd jump on it, work on it a little more. And as I was looking at it, I'm going, I don't mind this, but the eagle's a little, I don't know, forgettable, if you will. He's the negative space. So it's not bad. It's just I think it could be more intriguing. So this is where I printed out what I call a drawing template. And I did this so that I could draw on it. Now, I tried experimenting with shapes up here, but it almost looks like a seagull on the far right. So I didn't like how this was coming out, and I figured I'll just give myself the shape, and since it's white, I just printed it out with the black background, and I'm going to draw on it. And that's exactly what I did, is I went back and looked at an eagle, what makes an eagle an eagle. Eagles are just one of the coolest birds there are, in my opinion. There's a place up in Alaska where all these eagles land on a dock where fishermen are at, and they're feeding them salmon, and it's just really cool. Anyway, so I looked at an eagle, looked at how its beak is shaped. Its eyes are intense. It looks always like serious of sorts. It doesn't look comical. So I wanted that kind of tone to be brought to it, that he's strong, serious, and, patriotic looking, if you will. So went back, printed out that template I created and started drawing on it, and just figured out, these two on the far right, I think, are going to work the best. I didn't like the eye on this one. I thought he needed a brow, but I didn't like the gaps I put there. What I was inspired by, actually, as I was drawing these, was I grew up loving the Seattle Seahawks, the NFL team based out of Seattle. And I kind of wanted it to be simplified to a graphic like that. So that's kind of the styling that I had in mind. These two I drew out on the right are the ones I'm going to move forward with. So the way I built it is I took our base shape of the head, and then all the elements that match my underlying drawing. I've built out all the vector shapes here. That way I can just unite them together, take the head, and we'll go ahead and minus front like this. And I have everything that's going to work, in this case, for the eagle's head. Now, down here, I decided to go ahead and recreate these. If I select this, by the way, I should point out, once you do an edit like that using Pathfinder, it's going to revert to a group. It doesn't retain compound nature. Now, it's inconsistent in Illustrator because sometimes it does. It just depends on what tools you're using, and that's the part that frustrates me. I just wish they would finesse that. So what you have to do is you have to return the compound nature, because if you're going to do other editing, you don't want shapes to disappear, and that's what will happen if you're not paying attention. And when I first switched to Illustrator, I didn't know that. It never happened in freehand in the 15 years I used it. So now every time I do an edit, like the feather detail at the bottom here, notice it's gone back, it's reverted to group nature. I'll always hit F7, which is a keyboard shortcut, to return compound nature. If you don't have a keyboard shortcut, you'll have to go to Object, Compound, Path, and then over to Make, and then you'll be able to do it. On this artwork, I would go here, and I would just use the corner widget to round that, just so it's not square. I think that looks good. And I think we had a few extra anchor points. If we go here, you can see those here. So these are what I would clean up. I just select these since it's a straight line going here, and I just go minus like that, using, once again, the control panel, another good reason to keep it open. And now we have the new head, and we're going to apply that to our design. And I've even colorized the beak. So it introduced another color. Now, it's not part of the national colors, but it's part of the national bird, which their beak is a golden color. So I brought a gold color into this, and it goes very well with blue and red. Now, this is a typography design, but the more I was looking at it, actually, let's compare it first with what we had. This is what we changed it to, this is what we had, and you can see the new head is at a slightly different angle. So notice I had to change it to change the angle here, here, and on the back with the wing. So what it changed to, where it was. And so we made those little edits as well just to match it. But I think this is looking good. But then the more I set something aside and come back to it later, I decided I need to change something. I'm not liking this gap here. So this is where I revised it. And I decided to bring this S in. And I go, well, I like that. And then the more I looked at this, I'm going, well, I don't like the gap it creates in the back in the back of the S now between the U and the S. So how can I resolve that? And so I went back and I just made it straight, and I go, okay, I like that a lot better. I thought I was done, but this is the way my mind works. I set it aside, look at it again, and I go, you know what? The only element in this type design that isn't within the type itself is the star. It looks okay up there, but actually on American flag, the stars aren't red, they're white. And then that gave me the idea, what if I put this down, make it the negative space of the U? And so that's what I did. I decided to make that the negative space of the U and minus this out. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here. I'll go back to that plug-in dynamic corners, because you'll notice on, let's select that, on this corner, I have this established. I'm going to click that. Oops. I'm going to just click on that, and I'm going to establish that rounding on this corner and this corner after I run that Pathfinder method, just so it retains that continuity here with our design. And now I think my final design is done. I think this is going to work great. You match it up with some photography, it just looks absolutely epic. But I always like taking a design like this and making reverse version, because one, when I create t-shirt designs, I like just one color, not multiple color. I don't like wearing white t-shirts because I get them dirty too easy. So I like dark or colored or black t-shirts. And so we're going to turn this design into a reversed version. Now, one habit I've had for eons, this goes back to the 1990s when I was using freehand, is I've always had a layer, which I call my vector junk drawer, the X layer. And if I click this on, you can see at the very beginning when I was building this for this movie, you can see some of these smaller ones down there because that was actually the size I originally built it. These are the tolerances I established. And I'm just going to copy this one that was the gap and then come back to this layer and paste it, because what I want to do is I want to create a version of this. We're going to slide this type down that works once again on a dark or colored background. And so this is group, so I'm going to ungroup it, because this beak, we want to take this shape and we want to minus this out so it punches through that. So we'll do that. Again, it's going to revert to a group, so make sure to change that to a compound. Then we're going to take the wing and we're going to unite that. Again, it'll revert to a group. This is what I'm talking about. It's like that's expected behavior according to Adobe. And I'm so used to it now, fine, expected behavior, but it throws so many people off because they go to do another edit and things will start disappearing. And unless you're paying attention, you won't notice it. And that's what happened to me years ago when I switched to Illustrator. So I'm just warning you. So we're going to take this. This is going to give us a tolerance. You can see it's a fractional number, but I'll copy that into memory. I'll select this, go to Object, go to Path, go to Offset Path. I'm going to select Round here, and I'm going to paste the tolerance here and click OK. So all that's done. Let's go ahead and just put an outline on this like that. It's just offset from the base design. Now, there's elements we don't want in this, so I'm going to double click in this into isolation mode. Select the exterior, delete all the interior. So now we have this. We can colorize it or fill it and get rid of the outline. Select our type on top. Select the one we offset. And then I'm going to go minus front. And then again, it'll group. Make sure it's a compound. Now I'm going to take this shape that's the tolerance we did here. And actually, first thing I want to do, we don't want all these bumps down there. Those look silly. So we'll select all those and just go minus so it just goes straight. Even here, we can go in on this one here and just delete those. I think that looks a lot cleaner. And now I'm going to take this shape that was the tolerance. I'm going to bring it over here, snap it to the bottom, select our type, and then bring this up so it's still spaced from the design. Using that tolerance, I can get rid of that. Select this design. and go ahead and unite them. It's going to regroup again, so make sure to change it to a compound. I think this is going to work great, but let's go ahead and color it white because that's what we're going to be using. Can't see it here, so let's copy it to the clipboard. Turn on this layer. I have a nice image of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and on this layer I'm going to paste what we just did, and you can see how well it works on a dark or colorized background. Now, if you want to add an outer glow, that even looks cool. So we'll go to our eyedropper. We can sample an area in here. I'll pick an area that's like a dark red, like that. You can see it over here. So I'll drag it down into our color palette, and I always change it to a global color. Click OK. Select our artwork. We'll go up here, we'll go to stylize, we'll go to outer glow. We're going to select, we want multiply, and we'll select the color swatch we just created, which is this dark red, like that. And this is where you'll just pick whatever tolerance you want. I think that's a little dark. Let's go 65. 5, I think, will look good. And that'll help it bounce off the background even more. So this is how I create a reverse version. Here's one where I use the other color from the blue like this, and it works great on a colorized photograph of the Washington Capitol building in the background. So this movie, unlike most of my content, is inspired, of course, by American history, but you could do the same thing wherever you live and create a design that commemorates your country's history, or maybe it's a national event, etc. If you do that, email me what you come up with. I'd love to see it. And explain to me what it's all about as well, because I might not be familiar with it at all. Thank you again for those who subscribe or become members of the People Love Process channel. I appreciate your support so much, and if you're inspired by what you see, please do me a favor and share the channel with your friends. That always helps. Until next time, thank you for watching People Love Process, and as always, I hope this content helps you improve your own creative process.